Hello guys and girls, thank you very much for tuning in, and today I'm going to be accompanied by my good buddy Mr. Bond Fitness, or Andrew Bond, out in New York. How you doing over there, mate? Nice and early on a Monday morning?
Very good, mate. Good morning from New York. We're addressing sleep today, and I've had none, so it's probably a good episode to get into.
There we are, mate. That's appropriate then. That's great. So Andrew's off work today, but he's got up bright and early. It's like 5:30 in the morning where he's at. So he means business, you know. He's got all his notes ready, right? So I'm gonna leave the pressure with you today, Anne, right?
You put me on there. Thanks, mate.
So we just wanted to talk about the importance of sleep and how important it is to just your general well-being and health as a human in general. I mean, it's vitally important, as we all know. What's your take on the importance of sleep then, And?
Yeah, I wanted to address it early in one of the podcasts, mate, because it plays a pivotal role in everything we do, from how our hormones are regulated,
of course,
to our decision making for the day, to our irritability,
yep,
and productiveness, and what we might do during the day. And if you're an aspiring coach out there, you may want to kind of work on this with your client to start implementing it before any other modality into your client's routine.
Yeah.
It's vitally important in my eyes, anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. From a coach's perspective, it's definitely something I've been getting my clients to connect to a lot more, and to focus on. You know, for instance, in the evenings, you know, not being on their phone, and not too much electrical activity on the brain late at night before bed and stuff. Those simple kind of tools I'm trying to implement for them. But yeah, as a coach, I see what you mean, because it's a very important thing, and sometimes people don't kind of it's very common this day and age for people not to get enough sleep, and they think the way they feel, which for the most part for a lot of people is quite run down, because they're working stupid hours, spending too much time in front of screens, and they tend to feel like it's the normal way to feel, if you like. But it's pretty common.
Yeah, I think you're saying that the normal way to feel. I think these days there's so many stimulants out there that you can kind of mask a shitty sleep with the stimulants you take throughout the day, whether it be like a caffeine intake or pre-workout, and then you can get away with shitty sleep during the week, and then that's why you're so exhausted by the weekend.
That's it. Obviously suppressing the bad feelings, and obviously the fact that your immune system and your body's run down. But yeah, so you were brushing over about how important it is for hormone production and productivity and creativity or whatever. Pretty much, let's face it, sleep is pretty much important for every positive thing we do in life. So we could go into a little bit more detail, and let's elaborate a bit.
Yeah, in terms of like hormones, you have your hunger hormones. So you have leptin and ghrelin.
Yep.
I'll just touch on this briefly, but ghrelin is stimulated before you're ready to eat. So if you are in a type of routine, say you're waking up at 7 in the morning, you start eating around 8 regularly, then your ghrelin will be stimulated about 30 minutes before that. And then opposed to this is a hormone called leptin, which is released by your fat cells. And that indicates if we are full or satiated. Now, if this is off, and the chances of you overeating increase massively.
For sure, yeah, leptin.
So if you are susceptible to overeating, binge eating, then that's a huge hormone that you want to keep regulated. If your sleep is off, then that may be out of whack also.
For sure, it's another very common thing, isn't it? And also, like, obviously, we're probably going to get the cortisol, which is one of the basically a lot of people have out of whack cortisol levels from being under too much stress and whatnot. However, it is important to have a certain amount of cortisol, because it's really important for for your immune system and for basically your glucose level, all sorts of stuff. So it does have its benefits. However, a lot of people, especially people who don't get enough sleep, you will have high levels of cortisol, which then generally will put all the other hormones, like Andrew just mentioned, leptin and ghrelin, put those kind of hormones out of whack, especially leptin. Is that correct, mate?
Yeah, in terms of your cortisol levels, obviously you want them spiking in certain times of the day. So a lot of people knock on them all the time, but you want them spiked early in the morning. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the energy to do anything.
For sure.
But like coming back to that point you made earlier about stimulating yourself at night with like blue lights and TV shows and things like that, that's when you want your cortisol levels to be a little bit lower, because that's when you want to rest. So you don't want an energy spike at that time of night.
Yeah, of course.
And there is also something called cortisol resistance, similar to insulin resistance, I suppose. And that's where people are using artificial forms of cortisol to stimulate themselves and give them energy.
Exactly.
That can come from like your caffeine intake
That's
to doing crazy workouts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry.
Another hormone. Sorry, mate. I just wanted to mention, whilst we're on the topic of hormones, melatonin. So some studies they've done recently is well, basically the amount of time we spend on our phones, especially the fact that I haven't actually started using those blue blockers myself yet. Which, by the way, guys and girls, it's the light we get, which comes directly from our phones and electrical devices, iPads, whatever. The blue lights actually can really kind of have a bad negative impact and deteriorate your melatonin levels. So if you're on your phone or if you're looking at a screen, soon before bed, it's going to actually reduce the amount of melatonin levels you have. And obviously, melatonin is the hormone induced prior to sleeping, which we need darkness or at least dim lighting to produce. So it's going to give you a much better quality sleep by having good levels of melatonin. Just whilst we're on the topic of electrical activity, I think is a very important point for us to go over, because this day and age, most people, including myself, I use my phone way too much. It's actually an addiction, a behavioural addiction they've actually diagnosed now, where most of us are just addicted to going on our phone and wasting time, basically, and just scrolling and doing unproductive things, especially late at night. So with the cortisol, it's a stress. I'm just going to dumb it down for people a bit. It's basically one of the stress hormones, and it's a very, very it's almost heard of quite regular that people do have too high cortisol levels due to stress-induced life. But yeah, going back to sleep, I always recommend to my clients, and obviously to myself as well, which I'm still working on it, to just basically dim the lights out, and just sometimes I've started slowly using candles, but I faded off it a bit, just to have the lights dimmer just before bed, an hour or two. That helps a lot. And obviously not using your phone, and getting the blue light blockers is my next step as well, so I can how do they work anyway? And those blue light blockers, they're basically just glasses you put on and it blocks the light off your phone, is it? Or
you can get glasses. There's also a night option on your phone, where you can set the time. So I will set the time for the evening time, probably around 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Where it then dims the light for me.
Oh, I didn't know.
And then I'll set it to when I wake up in the morning. And then, so a couple of hours into when I wake up, so I'm not stimulated with that straight away.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Ultimately, you want to kind of give your brain a rest from thinking at night. That's why it's vitally important not to stimulate yourself.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And you want to improve your cognitive function.
Yeah.
If you are just on your phone watching TV, and look, I'm not the best at this either. I'm not going to sit down here and preach to everyone that I'm doing it correctly.
It's always work in progress.
I'm gradually changing into. And it's hard, mate. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I'm so attached to my phone.
I know.
That I try and work on switching that off late at night.
Yeah.
Television as well, like I mentioned to you, I watched Power last night, so I watched that just before bed, straight to bed, stimulated, and really switched off.
That's it.
I used to do candlelight. I do that, give myself 30 minutes to an hour before bed in the bedroom on my own, some silent time. And I do feel a lot better when I do that, you know.
About an hour or so before bed helps a lot, I find, doesn't it? Just to keep it simple.
And the biggest thing before bed is social media, and if you're doing that before bed, you're going to get pissed off with something. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's going to piss you off with what they say.
Oh, definitely.
Whether it's on Instagram or Facebook.
Well, that's it. Either way, you're stimulating. Yeah, you're not doing anything which is particularly productive anyway on your phone at that night. If you're on social media, full stop, then let's face it. I mean, as I said, it is an addiction most of us have without realizing, and we're searching for some sort of like dopamine hit. Whether it's liking someone's picture or someone liking ours picture or wherever it is, something which is minuscule, really.
So it is. It's temporary.
In the grand scheme of things, yeah, exactly. And but yeah, going into the benefits of sleep, I mean, I've looked at some studies and stuff, and I follow a guy called Ben Greenfield. You know Ben Greenfield, and
yep.
Yeah, I listen to his podcast quite regular, and it's quite a harsh experiment actually done on rats, and they basically were trying to pinpoint how long it would take for the rats essentially to die from sleep deprivation. Basically, it took them 3 weeks to kill them. Horrendous experiment they'd done though, where as soon as the rat would fall asleep, they would wake it up basically with some sort of like alarm. I don't know how they'd done it, but the second it would drop off, they'd wake it up. And then because of the rampant levels of cortisol, like we just mentioned, then it took basically another thing is neurogenesis, which takes place when we sleep, which is when all the neurons in your basically all the neurons in your brain and stuff, and basically the brain cells in general just regenerate and the whole body regenerates as part of neurogenesis. And with the rats not having any sleep, this process was basically not taking place because of the rampant levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So goes to show 3 weeks is all it took to kill rats.
It does lead to psychosis in some people, right? So going back to your point there, where they're waking the rats up, I believe that during certain wars that's been used as a torture device, basically for people to spill the beans, right? So
exactly,
depriving them from sleep.
Well, for sure, yeah. Without going off on too much of a tangent, though, relating it to the listeners who are just maybe looking to get healthier, get fitter, or just generally just learn a bit about health, wellness, aesthetics, whatever. Just try. I would try and aim for as a baseline to try and get about 7 hours. Just what we hear. And the studies they do, they say, a minimum of 7 hours is so many variables, but obviously if you just aim to get 7 hours, but it's not just the amount of time you sleep in, the quality is much more important actually, so I hear. So what you should aim to do is, like me and Andrew were saying, is just come off your phone. Like the less electrical activity on your brain prior to bed, the better. Just try reading a book or something. It always helps for me, helps me drop off and wind down a bit better. Yeah, and there's also the cellular garbage, which is cleaned up when you sleep as well. So the brain and body basically reorganizes all of the neural networks within your brain, so you don't run out of storage, because that's essentially what would happen. We don't realize how complex the human brain is. It is literally the most complex thing on the planet, and obviously scientists are still trying to work out exactly how it operates. And basically the brain does reorganize everything in your brain when you sleep, just to simplify it a bit, and then you will literally run out of storage in your brain, so you won't have a memory or anything to store any storage in your brain essentially if you don't sleep properly.
There's something to look forward to then?
Exactly, mate, that's it. So when we're talking about brain function and productivity and creativity, it just goes to show that your brain will literally reorganize when you sleep. So you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that it's pretty important. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, obviously you're talking about productivity. If you have a shitty sleep, you're obviously going to feel groggy and tired throughout the day, so that's going to impair your decision making. That's also going to cross over into, if we're focusing on aesthetic goals. If you're going to go into a training session, you're not focused, you're not going to put it all in. Exactly. It's going to be a sloppy training session that's going to have a negative effect on that as well. For sure, and obviously testosterone levels as well in guys. For all guys out there, again, studies have shown that when you sleep, you stimulate high levels of, you secrete high levels of growth hormone and testosterone. So if you don't get enough sleep, then your testosterone levels are definitely going to decrease, which common sense tells you you're not going to be as sharp in the gym or as productive or in your typical anabolic state, as we like to call it. So that's right though, and we would be surely more catabolic if we were sleep deprived. Yeah, I mean that's also linked to your cortisol levels, right? It's going to have a negative implication on storing body fat storage when your cortisol levels are too high, and that can have negative implications on building muscle then. So like I said, it has a huge crossover in terms of whatever your goals are. Yep. Your aesthetic goals in your daily life and your daily routine, basically.
It's definitely going to bleed into that for sure, isn't it? It's going to mold into that. But yeah, I just wanted a little quick tip. I don't know whether you've tried this yourself, Anne, but something I've been trying recently. Occasionally, I have a power nap, right? So you probably don't get a chance with all the traveling and stuff, do you?
Yeah, man, I can take a power nap in work, but I don't do it that often. No. Yeah. I think I was definitely doing it a lot more before, which was telling me that there was something else wrong. There was another issue. If you're having power naps every day on a regular basis, then you may have to look deeper into other issues you've got going on as well.
Exactly, hormonal imbalancements there sounds like they're for sure. If you're if you're hitting the wall and you're actually feeling a slump in your energy and how tired you feel, and that's a daily thing, then obviously there's the other things which are the top of the list, like your health and wellness, which you're not probably getting quite right. Whether it's your water intake or what you're eating or so on and so forth, it's just out of whack. But what I was going to say is, occasionally I do have a power nap, and what I now do is, because for me I can literally hit the pillow and be out cold within minutes. I have a coffee prior to having a power nap, so I only have like a 20-minute nap, 30 minutes max, and then because it takes about 20 minutes, half hour for the caffeine to kick in, you wake up and boom, you're literally raring to go. So that's a good little tip I would recommend, because it does definitely give me a huge burst of energy for sure. The combination of obviously dropping off and maybe, I don't know, shooting out some growth hormone and then waking up and having that caffeine hit. So guys and girls, give that a go. But yeah, how do you manage, Anne, to get get enough sleep yourself? Because I mean, you work long hours. You've got quite a busy life and all the traveling you do. Tell the listeners how you manage to function and operate, just in general as well.
As long as I get to sleep for before 10 at night. So if I'm in bed by say 9:30 p.m. I'm pretty much set, man. I feel great the next day.
Awesome.
I'm usually up around, I'd say, 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning.
Yep. So
that's kind of my sweet spot there. But like what I do is I implement, like I said, I've started implementing certain things into my routine that are going to aid me in that. So I'm not 100% with it at the moment, but this is what I would do as a basis for good sleep. So I would probably eliminate like caffeine before, I would stop having it before probably after 4 p.m. at night, because of the life the caffeine has. It's still going to stimulate me probably 5 to 6 hours later. I've started implementing candles when I can into my routine. So I'll put a candle on in the bedroom, stop watching television 30 minutes to an hour previous to go into bed.
Yep.
Just to relax, and I'll just maybe focus on some deep breathing then. Maybe some meditation as well. Social media is a huge thing for me, just switching that off. Definitely in switching Wi-Fi off around an hour before bed.
Awesome tips. Yeah, just gonna have to just kind of wrap this one up a tiny bit now. So yeah, I just wanted to really briefly skim over and basically cap off this chat we've had about sleep and how important it is. So yeah, Andrew just told you his routine then and what he looks to do each day in order to function at an optimum level. And yeah, that's what I aim to do as well. So I always aim to try and so normally I'll start work at 5-6 a.m. quite early, and I'll aim to get to bed about 9-10, similar to Andrew. So in reality, I'm probably averaging about 6.5, maybe 7 hours a night. But then sometimes on the weekend I'll bump my hours up, then I'll manage to get myself a good 8-hour kip or something like that. But generally, yeah, it's just a case of getting a good quality sleep. I would basically recommend, and that is the duration is obviously important, how long you're sleeping for, but also, aim to get yourself a good quality sleep. It does make a difference to your melatonin levels, and it will deteriorate your melatonin levels, which is a very important hormone we need for sleep. If you are on your phone directly before bed or using any electrical activity on the brain, just try and dim the lights out, and just try not to have too much or have a screen directly in front of you, basically, for say an hour or so before bed. And if you're consistent with that, I think it'll make a massive difference to everything, really, to your energy levels, your performance in the gym, and just your overall feeling of well-being. So really put sleep right at the top of the list with everything you do in life, really. It's definitely the top 3, as we all know this anyway, but I just wanted to, me and Andrew, just try and stress how important it is, being where we're at now in terms of how often we train and the level we've got to within the fitness and health realm. We have to really make it a massive priority. So if you want to, whether you want to get in shape or whether you want to just feel good and health is your priority, just try and aim to get yourself, I would say, at least 7 hours sleep, and just less electrical activity on the brain before bed, and just really trying to make it a priority, really. Anything else you want to drop on them before we call it off, End?
I think that's good. Just focus on your nighttime routine, limit your caffeine intake, and you'll be on your way.
Sweet. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, guys. Go give me a follow at Martin Silva Fitness, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is also Martin Silva Fitness. And obviously, if you could give this podcast a 5-star review on iTunes, that would be a massive help. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast also.
My Instagram is at Mr. Bond Fitness, and any inquiries via Gmail, mrbondfitness@gmail.com. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Over and out.